Right, and we're live, John. We're live. So let's do it. Right, this is episode 94. Right, hi folks. This is WP-Tonic, episode 94. It's a special. I'm introducing John Locke, who's going to be my ongoing co-host in the next episodes or the next season of WP-Tonic. And we're having a chat about John's experience in WordPress, his experience as being a WordPress developer, a web designer, and a cool guy in general. Say something, John.
Hello. How are you?
Great, John. So we're starting this off, John. So what led you into web design?
Well, web design is my second career. Originally, I had a first career, first I was working in restaurants, and then eventually I worked in bakeries for about 18 years. For 9 years, I was a bakery manager for a well-known supermarket chain, and then I ended up working for a factory bakery. But during this the time, I was developing a lot of repetitive motion injuries and just muscle strains, and so I wanted to do something that I could do for the rest of my life and that I would enjoy and be passionate about, and web design is what I chose. So during the last couple of years that I was working at the factory bakery, I started going to online school and learning web design, and on top of that, I was reading books by Jeffrey Zeldman, Ethan Marcotte, Andy Clark, all the early guys on the web, and I was building sites, just simple sites, and seeing how stuff worked, and then just building increasingly more complex sites. So.
Yeah, and didn't you do a college course, a degree as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did, for whatever that's worth. But education on the web is something you got to keep up on all the time.
Yeah, it's quite hard for educational establishment to keep current, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little bit tough because they're always behind, because for an accredited college, they have to get it approved by the college board, and it's usually a few years behind where the industry is.
Yeah. So, what advice? Because obviously, John's been on the show before, and we've become friends and that, and I'm delighted that he decided to become our co-host. We've got a very broad audience, folks. So, what advice would you give to somebody that's maybe looking to get into web design? Have you got any kind of tips or insights, and maybe recommendations, some of the things you did that you wouldn't do, or things you would have changed to get into it? Got any kind of insights, John?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is just start building stuff, to just to learn, and just to scratch your own itch. And some of the very early sites I did were just for people I knew, but then I started approaching people that I didn't know, in businesses that I didn't know. The biggest thing is be sure, if you go out on your own, as a freelancer, be sure to charge enough to keep yourself in business, because that's one of the biggest things that I see is people don't charge nearly enough to stay in business. And a lot of people, they're around for a couple of years, but then they have to go work for an agency or something like that, because they're charging what they think the hourly rate should be, but they're forgetting that they have to pay their own taxes, and that they're not really going to get 40 hours a week all the time. So that's the biggest thing.
That's quite true. What about working for somebody? Was you not tempted to join an agency and be on salary full time, rather? Because I think, am I correct in saying that you've always been a freelancer, haven't you?
Yeah, and I've always been a freelancer, and part of it was because I didn't even break into the industry until I was about 40 years old. And because of that, a lot of places, they kind of take a pass on you if you're a junior developer who's older. because they're looking for, a junior developer basically is just someone who builds websites for less than a senior developer. And they are less experienced, but most agencies use a lot of junior developers to stay profitable. But they really want people who are, preferably young, maybe unencumbered, and it was a little bit difficult to break in because of that. I mean, I did do a lot of work for agencies, and I still do. I still do quite a bit of subcontracting, but I just charge a lot more. So when I really stopped trying to get a full-time job somewhere and just focus on being my own business, that's when things really started to build momentum.
That's really fascinating, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it kind of is. You kind of have to be just all in on something. You can't be half and half.
No, it's true. It is true. But I think also you touched how, this is a ridiculous question, really, but I'm still going to ask it, John.
Sure.
How do you avoid burnout, really? Have you got any insights? Because it's really, really quite easy in this industry to get totally burnt out, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that get burned out. I mean, and I can tell you, in my previous career, I was definitely a workaholic too. I think it's a personality trait that some people have. And especially for men, I think it's really hard to struggle with workaholism because your self-worth is so tied to, work. But what I do is I make sure that I set, certain times each day that I'm going to stop. I do take breaks. I don't just sit down for 10 hours straight. And, I just, working for myself, I have that ability to, do things at my own pace. So I can work a full day and I don't feel like I'm burning out. So.
No, I can understand that. So what are the kind of basic tools that you use to develop with, John?
So I'm pretty basic when it comes to that. I'm pretty old school. I basically just use Sublime Text. I use, if I'm building a custom theme, I just use something like underscores, and just develop on a staging environment. Browser Stack is something that I use to do browser checking. I have a small device library where, I can check mobile devices. Just Photoshop, Illustrator, a little bit. Just really basic tools.
Yeah, they're normal tools of the trade. So, yeah, that's great. So have you got any advice to the business owner looking to hire? They're looking for a custom look and they're looking around to hire somebody. Got any kind of insights about how they should judge, if they're just looking online and they're looking for recommendation about who might be the right person to hire?
Well, most of the business owners that I run into that have had a bad experience, I should say most, and definitely with small business, most people have had a bad experience hiring a web developer or a team or what have you. Generally speaking, don't just hire the first person that you run into. Don't run into the first person you get referred to. Kind of do your due diligence, research people, talk to different people. Realize that you're going to get what you pay for most of the time. I'm not saying every time that if you pay a lot, you're going to get quality, but more often than not. I would ask people what their process is so you get a good idea of, have they got a plan for approaching projects? Do they have a repeatable pattern of how they diagnose problems? Or do they just jump in and start building stuff and, figure out what the destination is later?
That's great. So I think we'll go to our first break, folks, and we'll come back and learn more about John. See you soon, folks. We're coming back to learn more about John and how he got into web design and WordPress. So, John, when did you first start using WordPress, and have you used any other kind of content management systems, or was it WordPress and you just saw the light, John?
Yeah, I would say that for the most part, like when I first started, I was doing a lot of like flat HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and then I was like starting to look at different CMSs like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and WordPress was one of the ones that seemed the most accessible to me. And I've dabbled in a couple others like Expression Engine, but WordPress is really just what I gravitated toward, and that's what I've been using, for the last 5 years.
So when did what version, can you remember what version, and when you first saw it and started trying it out?
Now, I don't remember the particular version, but it was right around the time that they were introducing custom post types. That was like brand new. This is about 2011 or so.
Yeah, that's great. I think I started using it around 2009, 2010. I think it was version 208 I started using it. Showing my age, and I, John. But that's great, like I say. So what do you think is going to happen to WordPress? Have you got any kind of insights or thoughts about what anything interesting that might happen in the WordPress world in the second half of 2016, John?
Well, the two things that I really see happening is the REST API is being more fully integrated into core. They're building out the endpoints, and I think you're going to see a lot more applications using WordPress as a database, and then pulling that into apps or different like applications through that. The other thing that's really interesting that I've noticed in recent news is if you've read the news, you saw that Automatic, the parent company of WordPress, is starting to go after people who have WooCommerce in their domain name, much as the way that they do with the term WordPress. And I know that they acquired WooCommerce about a year ago. And I think what you're going to see is them integrating WooCommerce like more into the WordPress.com service to give a complete e-commerce solution to people who want to subscribe to WordPress.com. Because I think what they're trying to do is go after competitors like Squarespace and Big Cartel and Shopify that have these type of subscription solutions that offer e-commerce. So,
yeah, that's great. A kind of follow over question is, you mentioned Squarespace. Now you've got services like Squarespace, Wix, and Shopify, and then you got WordPress and WooCommerce. Why should somebody be looking at WordPress, John? You got any rather than Squarespace? What do you think are the kind of rationale? You got any insights about the rationality somebody should be thinking about to make a choice? Because that can be a bit complexing, can't it?
Yeah. So I mean, Squarespace it's got a pretty robust e-commerce capability, but it's pretty straightforward when it comes to like what they offer. When you get into applications like WordPress, there's such a robust plugin ecosystem when it comes to e-commerce and memberships that really the sky's the limit for what you can do and what you can build. You can either chain together different plugins or build something custom that puts stuff together. Basically, you're going to be able to build more complex solutions with self-hosted WordPress than you are with something like Squarespace or Big Cartel. So,
That's great. Can I ask a quite difficult question, and I don't expect it to be precise, John, but I just thought you might give some insight. So let's say we're looking at, a smallish e-commerce site done in WordPress. What do you think, somebody that actually knows what they're doing, what kind of budget, realistic budget parameters should a business person looking to have that built? Maybe they tried Squarespace and their business, they want to move their business on to the next level. What kind of realistic budget kind of parameters? Can you give any insights, John?
Sure. So budget is always tricky because, again, it's going to depend on the business, what the business is, how much revenue they're generating from their site, and who's building it for them. The larger team that you bring in and the larger that the business is that's commissioning the site, the larger the budget is going to need to be. Now, for small businesses that I deal with, the vast majority of sites that I build are in that 3 to 10K range. E-commerce is going to cost more than a regular website because you have to make sure that payment gateways are configured correctly. There's more testing that needs to be done. So that, an e-commerce site is going to cost more than a simple brochure site. If you are expecting to spend a few $1,000s for a brochure site, then I would up that to at least like $5,000 or $6,000 for an e-commerce site.
Yeah, and what kind of timeline, a realistic time? I know that it's enormous variation in that as well, but can you give any kind of idea what a realistic timeline is in general?
Sure. So, and again, timeline, when you're talking about timelines with web projects, the biggest factor here is like how many people are involved, application chain. That's usually the biggest part of the time budget of a project. Now, if you're dealing with a smaller business or a smaller organization where there's one person who's making decisions, who has the final say, and maybe it's just, the marketing department or directly, with the owner, most projects are about 6 to 8 weeks. But with large organizations, they can definitely take, months, and very large projects can take, several months to, years even, because there's so much iteration going on, Well,
that's great, John. I think we'll go on to our next break and then we'll finish off with a couple of questions and wrap it up, John.
All right.
Well, we're back, folks, for our final section. So I think we dealt with a few things. Would you have advised when it comes to, let's say, what is called a brochure site? Let's say, what are some of the things that a client should be aware of before they hire a professional like yourself? What do you think some of the fundamental things they should understand?
The whole process is going to take a little bit longer than you think it will if you want it done right. The biggest difference between professionally done sites that end up successes and sites that, maybe they cost a lot, but they end up not being a success is the planning stage. If you do a paid discovery, plan mapping, whatever you want to call it, at the beginning of the project, it's going to ensure that the rest of the project is going to stay on course and that there's no surprises and that everybody's on the same page. And what that usually entails is digging deep, finding the problems that you're actually solving, and making some decisions of how you're going to solve those problems that each person is going to have to contribute to the project. So look for stuff like that. Generally speaking, it's not just like I want to have a site that is YouTube for $2,000, or or copy this site. That's a big thing. Like things take a while to get done right. Like planning, strategy, design, development, and testing. So.
Yeah, that's true words. So how can people get hold of you, John, if they want to? You'll be joining me every week, and but if people want to talk more about hiring you and having an initial conversation, what's the best way of getting hold of you, John?
Sure, you can always find me on my website, which is lockdowndesign.com, and there's a silent E after the lock. I have an E at the end of my name. So my email address is john@lockdowndesign.com, and you can find me on Twitter as lockdown_.
That's great. And folks, if you want to get hold of me or pass a comment, the best ways are to email me at Jonathan, JONTHAN, at WP-Tonic.com, or Twitter me at Jonathan Denwood. They're the quickest ways to get hold of me. John's, like I say, is going to be my co-host for the upcoming season. And also he helps me. We do a live show, folks, where you can ask questions about WordPress, or you're looking for any kind of advice, any kind of WordPress problem. We've got a great team of other panelists, but John is going to help me with that. That's on Saturdays. It starts at 9 p.m. and we normally go on for a couple of hours, and that's on Blab IM. And you go to if you want to know more, you can go to the website, go to the sitemap, and you'll be able to see the link. And that will give you more details. So, John, thanks for agreeing to become my co-host. I think we've done a really nice interview. Got anything else that we think we haven't covered?
Well, I don't know. Just do due diligence. Someone just do due diligence, and if you're a developer or a designer scouting a client, do your due diligence there as well.
That's true words. It works both ways, doesn't it, John? Right then, folks, thanks for listening to this special episode. Next week, we'll be delving probably into how to choose a Premier theme, the right way to choose one and the wrong way for your project or your new website. Have a great week, and subscribe to the show on YouTube and join us next week. Bye, folks.